So our seller question today is going to be about how quickly do you want to move? So we're going to talk about timing your move, how much time you need from the moment you decide you want to sell until you're out of the door.
Timing is a byproduct of your motivation. Your motivation is either tied to getting out quickly or getting the most amount of money. Those two things require two different strategies. And your reluctance to price a property accordingly, right, to do the necessary things to market the property will come into play here.
Yeah, so we always like to think there are going to be a few things you want to consider. First of all, your motive. We talked about yesterday all the different reasons people move, and it's usually going to be due to some type of life change. But your motive is going to determine just how quickly you have to move. If you're selling to relocate, you may have to get out of your home rather quickly if you need to be at a new destination by a certain deadline. Or even if you're purchasing another home, if you already have plans to buy another home, or if you've already closed on your new home, how long can you carry two mortgages? Or if you're buying another home and you need the proceeds from the sale of this home in order to finance that next transaction. Okay, well, what's the timeline look like, especially when you're in the seller's market like we are now? How long is it going to take you to even find another home if we're in a very competitive market?
There's another segment of sellers that are on the market and they're just market testers. So these individuals, if they could get a price, they would sell, but they're not tied to pricing the property, quote unquote, fairly. It's not a fair price. It's just a price that, you know what, if I can make an extra $50,000, $100,000, $200,000,
I'd move.
I'll let the property up. Just watch out for those individuals. If the comps don't support the price that the seller is offering or asking for, then know that you may be dealing with somebody who is not, quote unquote, realistic. And when you're making your offer, just try to have all your emotions detached from that because it may not go well.
Because just like with buyers, as we talked about comps and CMAs, sellers also get CMAs at the beginning of the process when they're pricing their home. So when you have someone who's just testing the market, they have an agent who told them their house is worth X. And they are saying, well, you know what? Let's try double X and see how that goes.
Right. Sellers CMAs are sellers comparable market analysis prices into the future, whereas a buyer CMA prices for the past. So the buyer is trying to say, what is this house worth today? A seller CMA is saying, what is this house worth tomorrow? Right? So there's six questions to ask yourself to know when you're going or where you're going and when. The first question is, why are you selling? So what is your motivation? Krista already alluded to a couple motivation points, whether or not you're relocating, whether or not you're going through a divorce, or just other life events that happen. Will answer that question.
Mm-hmm. And then you want to think about what your ideal time is. And so that can be a number of different things, whether you have to be somewhere or even just what works best for you as far as your work schedule, what works best for you as far as being able to show the property, how long is it going to take the property, and how long is it going to be convenient for you to show the home.
Third question you want to ask yourself is, when do you want to be out of the property? So this is more or less like your pie in the sky idea of, okay, great. When I'm thinking about I want my move to be timed this way, so maybe I want to move at the end of March, your agent is going to use that date to kind of work backwards. So that's important for you to know.
Yes. And then the next one is actually, when must you be out? So if you are leaving and you're planning on listing a house and you say, oh, well, I could be out in March, but then I have to be out by May, right? So if you are relocating for a job, it'd be nice if I could get out of the area by this point, but I absolutely can't leave after this date. So from there, as Abraham said, you'll kind of backtrack and figure out, okay, well, if this person has to be out by this day, and we know that as of right now, homes are sitting on the market for 36 days. It takes 30 days from the time you receive an offer to close on a property. And we also know that you need time to get the home ready to get on the market, right? You need time to declutter and get everything together. So you would just work back from that date to figure out what's the ideal time to come on the market.
I'll also add here, please tell your agent these dates. Sometimes we have clients who are kind of holding stuff to their chest as far as like when they want to move. Once you put your house on the market, it's very likely that you're going to get an offer. So if you're going to get an offer, but you can't move until the middle of May, but you thought it was going to take you longer, please be transparent with your agent so your agent could advise you accordingly. So the fifth question you want to ask yourself is, how quickly do you have to sell? Honesty is the best policy here. Sometimes we have clients who have a move out date, and their move out date is tied to If I could sell in 30 days, 45 days, or two months, I'll sell. But if I don't meet that date, then I'll rent. Let your agent know. And also just understand that that is a different strategy if you're on a time crunch that doesn't align with the market.
Yeah, and then we have number 6, which again goes back to number 4, which is what is the most amount of time you have to sell? Because if you have a lot of time, then that puts less stress on you, so you're able to declutter slowly. You're also able to market your home coming soon before you're ready to actually come on the market, so that gives you more time. But if you have a clear deadline, you don't have a lot of time, let the agent know what is the longest you can possibly wait to be out of the house, so then you can come up with your best plan.
Next thing you want to consider is that price is a factor here. So if you want to move a home quickly, then pricing it lower or at the market is going to give you the most desirable results there. If you have some time on your hand, right, and you don't need to go anywhere, and you know that you don't mind dealing with the showings and dealing with the questions, then you could price higher. This book says that if you price low, you may get multiple offers. That's not always the case. There have been cases when, especially for our clients recently, where a property was on the market, I think for
It
$750.
was on the market at $730.
So $730, my client offered $730 first week on the market, and the seller rejected our offer.
Didn't even counter.
No
Didn't even
counter.
counter the
Agent
offer.
didn't reach out to us. It just said we rejected it. So then a week passed, and then the seller's agent reached back out to us and said,
Have your clients found a home yet?
right, are y'all still interested? And then my client was able to purchase that property for list price. That person, after talking to the agent later on, I found out that the seller assumed that they would sell their home for $800,000.
Yes.
That was the price. They thought that they were going to get an additional $70,000. That may not always work for you. What she should have done was ask for $800,000 and then hope that it worked out, and then just work the price backwards. This is just something you want to consider. If you're selling a home, price for what you believe you're going to make, because if you don't, you may make that other number.
Then we have depends on your market, right? So if you're in a seller's market, then that means that homes are going to sell rather quickly. So if the market is red hot, you could end up receiving multiple offers. And that could mean that you have to expedite your plans as far as move out dates. Sometimes you plan on being out of the house. I'll put the house on the market, and it may take us 30 days to get an offer. But as we're transitioning, as we currently are, homes may have taken 30 days to sell in January, but we're anticipating, because the market is changing, that more homes are going to start going under contract that first weekend, or maybe within 10 days, because that's what we're seeing even for our buyer clients now, is that homes are starting to get multiple offers on opening weekend. That means that seller has to be ready to vacate in 30 days, maybe 45 days, but 45 days is really a long closing.
When you think about competition too, you have the inventory, which Chris already talked about. There's also seasonality. So during different seasons, during different times of the year, we'll determine if there's a lot of listings, if there's a lot of buyer demand. Buyer demand dips in the winter months because a lot of buyers are just thinking about other things, right? They have family vacations or vacations in general. They have the end of the year events, holidays. So if you're putting your house on the market at the end of the year, then you should expect to have less showings. You should expect to have a lower sales price. And this also goes for our buyers who are watching this broadcast as well. The winter before January is the best time to get a quote unquote deal. Right, it's not going to be a significant deal, but there'll be less competition, and you could plan for that almost every year, every December, every October, late October, November, December. All right, so that is it for our 100 questions every seller should ask.